Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're here today to unpack the Offboarding Assistant. We're going to get started in just a second. Um, if you have if you'd like to tell us where you're joining from, we'd love to see where everybody is from. You can go ahead and type that in the Q&A in the top box of your Teams chat. Okay, well, let's get started. We got some people joining us from Toronto and Mississauga and Vancouver. Awesome. And way out in PEI, welcome. Thanks for coming. All right, let's get started. We're going to talk today about unpacking the offboarding assistant. We're really excited to show this new product to you and tell you all about what it's able to do for you and your business. First, let me introduce our host, myself. My name is Andrea Morgan. I'm product manager for Payment Evolution. I run our payroll and compliance products, and I'm also a payroll compliance professional with the National Payroll Institute. Joining us in our chat and our Q&A team that we have standing by, because we have a lot of people registered for this webinar, is Patrick Lumia. He's a sales development representative here at Payment Evolution. We've got Christine McIntyre. She's a member of our CS team and also a payroll compliance professional with the National Payroll Institute. And Ali Galvez, who is our sales team lead. So they will be answering questions in the Q&A chat. And if you don't get a question answered, what you might see is that we're going to answer it live at the end. So we'll go over that in the housekeeping in just a minute. So the goal for today is to really give you a good understanding of what the Offboarding Assistant is and what it can do for you. So the things that we're hoping that you take away from today is that you can answer the following questions. What is the Offboarding Assistant and how does it work? Why did we build the Offboarding Assistant? When should you use the offboarding assistant and why? And what do you get out of it? All of these things will help you understand when's the right time to use it, how do you use it, what's important to you when you're making it work. So let's get into our agenda without losing any time. First of all, some quick housekeeping. So I see some of you are having trouble joining from the actual attendee, and you're joining in the Teams chat. No problem. We have you in here. Just if you wouldn't mind keeping your cameras off and your microphones muted, that would put you in the same kind of boat as the attendees. Next, you have a Q&A button at the top of your Teams board. Any questions that you have, please post them in there. What'll happen is our team, Ali and Patrick and Christine, will be able to answer questions as they come in. They might post them live, and if they post them live, that means that we're going to try and get to them at the end of the Q&A. Anything we don't get to, please know that you can always reach out to our sales team. You can reach out to our customer success team at support@paymentevolution.com if there's any other questions that you have at the end. But let's try and keep everything in the Q&A. Anything that's not answered, they'll typically tell you we're going to answer it live, so you should be good to go. So now that housekeeping is done, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to unpack the offboarding assessment. What is in it for you? I'm so excited to show you guys this tool. I'm going to give you a short demo. We're going to talk about pricing and the Q&A. And again, type it in the chat. Any question you have, let us know. We're here to help. So first and foremost, what is the offboarding assistant? I know you guys have been getting a lot of emails about this. You've been hearing about it. There's been some social media about it. From a very simple perspective, you want to think of the offboarding assistant as a digital assistant that knows and understands employment legislation. The tool itself will ask you questions and calculate your termination pay obligations. This is all about paying employees who are leaving your company the amounts that are required under the Employment Standards Act of your province. So that was a big mouthful. I get it. Let's talk about what that means. So to talk about what it means, we want to talk about why did we build this? Why did we make this tool? Well, our our purpose and our reason and our driving force behind this was we wanted to solve the compliance problems. And I know, what are the compliance problems? I get it. Okay, let's start with compliance. Compliance means it is in accordance with the provincial legislation related to terminations. Okay. Um, this is all laid out in each province's Employment Standards Act. That sounds pretty simple, right? Doesn't sound like a problem. Well, being compliant is actually a very challenging thing. So, because provincial legislation related to terminations laid out in the Employment Standards Act is hard to read. I'm just going to be really plain about it. It is hard to read. So, what are the problems? Well, first of all, the complexity of the rules within the act are significant. Anybody who's ever tried to read some of these rules can testify that they are confusing, they loop around each other. Sometimes it'll say one thing in one case and another thing in another case, and you're not sure which case applies to you. It can be really complex. And this makes it very challenging for a small to medium sized business owner to say, yes, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is if you don't know and you can't figure it out, the administrative costs to confirm compliance are high. I'm talking about hiring outside professionals like HR professionals, accountants, lawyers that you might want to get in and make sure that you are doing the right thing. Well, the cost of hiring these outside individuals are often also very high. And we're going to go through that a little bit more later. But those are the problems. That's what we're trying to solve. We want to simplify the rules and we want to keep the cost much lower than what you would pay when you're using one of these outside professionals. So to illustrate these problems, just so you understand where we're coming from, that we didn't just make these problems up out of thin air. In 2022 to 2023, Ontario alone, a single province, saw 11,718 ESA violation investigations. So these are employees who complained to the Ministry of Labor that their employer did something wrong, violated the Employment Standards Act, and they investigated 11,718 of these in a single year alone. Of those 11,718, the ESA or the Ministry of Labor will only give us a breakdown of them, like what was the first, what was the second, what was the third, so on. Termination payments was in the top 3 for complaints registered with the Ministry of Labor. So that's pretty significant if you think about the number of complaints that are coming through. Because why? Well, it's hard and it's expensive to try and figure it out and do it right. And again, these are the things we're trying to solve. If you were to be a company that was investigated for a potential ESA violation, I want you to also consider the time and cost associated with defending your company. So if you say, well, I don't have to be compliant, it's probably not going to be me. Okay, it might not be, but it could be. And if it is, you have to consider all of the following things. The time and cost associated with defending your company, it is significant. The burden is on you to show that you did the right thing versus on the employee to show that you did the wrong thing. And so that means you are taking time away from running your business to help make sure that you can prove that you didn't violate the ESA. If they do find that you have violated the ESA and you don't pay the amount within the time frame that you are given, and it's usually a very small window, the fines start anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 and can include up to 12 months of jail time. So really, when you think about it, the act is tough, the administrative costs are high, but the cost of noncompliance is even higher. You don't want to get stuck in that boat. So I ask you again, why did we build this? Well, really simply, the Offboarding Assistant can help you with your termination payments. What we've done when we built the tool was we created it with a series of assumptions. And the assumptions are kind of basic things that you can look at and say, yep, this applies to my employee. They're keep the tool from asking you 50 questions down to it asks you a maximum of 5 questions depending on your province and your situation. So it keeps the tool really simple, and the list of assumptions are available on our help desk at help.caymanevolution.com. You can quickly search them up, find your province, and make sure that they apply to you. Little things like the assumptions assume that the employee's province of employment is also the province where they would fall under ESA regulations. 95% of the time, this is true. And so it just makes that assumption rather than making you fill out another question, keeping the tool simple. But again, they're all available for you to review on our help pages. You can search up Offboarding Assistant. You can also search up assumptions, and you'll find them there. The other cool thing about the tool is that it errs on the side of caution. And so what this means is that if there's a variable in the data that it's gathering from your employee, it will always err on the side of the employee. And the reason that this is better for both you and the employee is, first of all, for the employee, you are ensuring that you are having a good separation with them. You are giving them a fair and compliant payout. And then for you as the employer, you are making sure that you are always in line or above the minimum ESA standards. You will never see yourself in a violation situation if you are using this tool and erring on the side of caution. So let's talk about when you should use it. So again, the offboarding assistant is a really cool tool that helps you with termination payments. When should you use it? Well, this is really simple, when it's recommended. The tool is smart. When you run, and I'm going to give you a demo in just a minute, when you start to terminate an employee, you enter the reason for termination, and based on that reason, it will recommend the offboarding assistant or not. So quick example, if the employee quit, it's not going to recommend it. You don't need to pay termination payments when an employee quits. But if you're letting the employee go for a shortage of work, then it is recommended. And so the system will know. Now, remember, it errs on the side of caution. So there are a few variables in there. And this is when you kind of get into the second point. So when it's recommended, and when you are terminating an employee permanently. So I'll give you a great example of this. So if you were to choose the termination reason, code K, other, change of ownership. Well, the system doesn't know whether your company is changing ownership and all the employees are being fired, in which case you want the offboarding assistant, or it's simply that you're going to get a new CRA number. And so you're terminating them from this one company and going to rehire them in another company. And you just want to submit your documents to Service Canada properly. The tool doesn't know that, so it's going to err on the side of caution. And so knowing that you are not terminating the employee permanently, but it is recommended, then you're gonna make sure that you have a way to skip it. And I'm gonna show you how to do that, because sometimes it might not apply to you. It's erring on the side of caution. If you have questions, then it doesn't hurt to reach out to our customer success team. When it's recommended and you have employees without a termination clause in their employment contract. If you don't have employment contracts with your employees, maybe you should consider looking into some either standard templates or some other options that are out there. You should have a termination clause within every employee's employment contract. Additionally, if you have employees with a termination clause in their employment contract, but it limits the payments to the ESA standards, then by all means, run the offboarding assistant. You'll know exactly what those are, and you'll pay the employee the right amount in about 2 minutes. Lastly, you should use it when you want to save time and guarantee compliance. So let's have a look at a quick demo. I'm just going to log into one of my test accounts here. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to show you how it works. This is really cool. All right, so I'm logged into one of my test accounts here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to offboard an employee when offboarding assistant is recommended. I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's not recommended, and I'm also going to show you what it looks like if you need to skip it. If you're in that situation where you change of ownership and you're actually the employee is not being let go; they're simply moving to a new CRA number because the company has changed ownership. I'll show you how to work with that. So when I'm ready to start offboarding my employees, I go to my employee list, and I go to my team members. So I have a team member here, and I am ready to start offboarding them. Okay. And if you've terminated an employee within the last month or so, you might have noticed a new flow within the termination process, and that was so we could embed the offboarding assistant in there and make it even easier for you. So we're going to begin offboarding. We're going to select the date and reason for termination, and the offboarding assistant will be recommended when required. Run it to stay compliant when prompted. So we're going to say begin offboarding. And just for our test today, I'm going to ignore that the employee has vacation pay owing. And you'll notice, because shortage of work is the first one that comes up, offboarding assistant is recommended. I could also choose one that does not require offboarding assistant. I don't owe any termination payments for this employee, no problem. So it will remove that sign right there. Let's go ahead and run it for this one and see what happens. So our offboarding assistant is recommended. We've got our termination date based on my last pay run. And I am going to proceed without paying the outstanding vacation, just because we're doing a demo today. I am terminating my employee. I've got some details here on the right, the date that I've put in, their hire date, their wage, their province of employment, and the reason that I selected to terminate them. Now, it tells me, caution, hey, look at this, the offboarding assistant's recommended, and you're about to terminate a person who is eligible for termination compensation as per the Employment Standards Act. Run the offboarding assistant to stay compliant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the offboarding assistant. Let's see how it works. Okay, so it's going to ask me just a couple of questions. Remember, we've got some assumptions in place, so we didn't have to ask you 50 questions. It's just going to ask you a few. So is the current hire date that you have on file the original hire date? So this is something like if the employee went on mat leave during their time with your company, the original hire date would actually be the date that they were hired before they went on that mat leave, not their current hire date. So if they have an original hire date, you're going to want to put that in. The termination date is always going to pull in the date that that was on the that you put in on the when you put in the date and the reason. So this one's going to come over. If for whatever reason you need to change it, by all means, go ahead and do it here. I'm going to say continue. Wants to know when I gave termination notice to this employee. This is a really important question. It's going to ask me this question to determine whether I owe pay in lieu payments. Depending on the employee's length of service with your company, you might owe them notice payments. And sometimes you say, okay, you're going to work the notice. I'm going to, as of 2 weeks from today, you're out of here. You might have them work during the notice period, which is fine, and you're completely allowed to do that as a company. But a lot of times people just say, no, I'd rather just pay you out and see you walk away. So they want to know when you've been given notice. The last question is this Ontario-specific question. It's asking about severance pay. In Ontario, we have severance pay for employees who have been with the company for over 5 years. And so because this employee is here for more than 5 years, and severance relates to only companies who have a global payroll over 2.4 million. That means the payroll that you pay out to any employees across the world is 2.5 million or above. You would be subject to a severance pay. So I'm going to say yes in this situation. Let's see what it gets. First time I use the offboarding assistant, I'm going to see a little disclaimer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it. I'm going to make sure that I understand it. I'm going to acknowledge that I accept these terms. You will get an email with the terms coming directly into your email right after you select it. So you can keep them. If you ever need to refer back to them, they are there for you. But you won't see it every time. You'll only see it the first time. So I've acknowledged. And now it's calculating my termination obligations. See how fast that was? Pretty cool, huh? So now, just so you know, when I click the continue button at this point, I have not been charged. This is a paid tool, so I have not been charged at this point. As soon as I click this button, I will be charged the fee for the tool. We'll talk about the pricing in just a minute. But there's a little tool tip in case you forget. And there you go. Did we have any idea that I would owe this employee $11,000? Well, There is some pay in lieu and there is some severance pay in here that I might not have considered as a small business owner. I might be, this person was making $29 an hour and an average of 38 hours a week. And we might not think that we owe them that much, but because of this employee's length of employment, my global payroll in Ontario is putting in severance pay. I might not have ever known this if I hadn't run this tool. So here I have it. Let's have a quick look at what we see on the page. Well, we've got all the information that we put into the tool. We've got information about the employee, when they were hired, when we gave them notice, and whether they're eligible for termination notice, their termination date, their severance pay, their termination pay in lieu. Wow, that's a lot. What this is a great overall view of what you need to do to pay the employee. But the first thing I would recommend that you do when you run this tool is go here and grab your PDF. The PDF is so the PDF is so comprehensive as to what you see in the record. So again, you've got all of your basic information on the first page. The second and third pages are probably one of the most valuable pieces of this tool, because not only does it break down the law, the rules we used to apply the calculations, it shows you how we err on the side of caution. So it might go in and say, we took the higher of X or Y, and here's X and here's Y. It gives you a full breakdown. And the last little part of it lists all of the assumptions that are related to this employee. And the last little part of it gives you a little heads up that you could actually run this and say, you know what, I'm going to give my employee notice now. I am not going to pay them the pay in lieu, and I'm going to have them work for the 4 weeks that I am required to give them. Because if I give them 4 weeks of notice, I owe them nothing. But if I give them 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so maybe I want to limit what I do. So it's okay to run this preemptively and go, okay, now I don't have to pay the whole thing. I can just pay that portion of the pay in lieu. But the really great thing about this PDF is it was built for you to, as an employer, to give to your employee and say, this is what we've calculated. This is a fair and compliant payment, and we are going to pay this out to you. And doing that allows you to meet your compliance obligations, and that's really your goal. So now back to the tool. All right. Once we've run the Offboarding Assistant, there's two things that we want to do next. We either want to look at next steps, and that's either terminate the employee or pay out the amounts, because we always want to pay them out. Running the tool tells you what you need to pay. It does not pay it. So you need to run a pay run to pay out the payments that are shown on the assistant or on the PDF. Next steps will take you to that. I'll show you that in 1 second. Secondly, you might want to talk to somebody about this. Well, we have an HX specialist. HX is our term for human experience, bigger than HR and just human resources. You might want to discuss these results, make sure that you're doing the right thing, and absolutely that's available. We have a consultant ready to go, and all you do is click the button and you'll be taken to their sign up page, and you can sign up for a meeting with our HX specialist. Once you're ready to go, you're going to click on next steps. And next steps gives you two options. You can continue offboarding. That's going to terminate the employee for you, so you can move on to your ROE. But really, if you've got a number in here, you need to pay the employee. So what you want to do is you want to pay the employee. And what this will do is it will take you through a 3-part help article. And so you've got, this is part 1, and then part 2 and part 3, and it links at the bottom as well. Shows you how to create the pay rules that you might need depending on what your requirements are. Then it'll take you through running the actual termination pay run and then adjustments to the ROE for any of the termination payments. So it actually walks you through the full step of how to do it. If you need a little help navigating through these articles, by all means, contact our customer success team. They're happy to help. All right. So I am going to just go to continue offboarding just because I want to get out of this right now. So what you saw was how simple it was. Now I chose that I'm ready to terminate. I can view my results right here and I'm ready to terminate the employee. I'm going to leave them here for right now. We're going to look at another employee, show you what it looks like when there might be a variable and you might want to kind of skip through it and show you what that looks like. The cool thing is that PDF is available right there by clicking View Results. Will take you back to that page that we were on. Let's say you've gone and paid out your requirements. You want to make sure that you download this and keep it on file. Give one to your employee so they can see exactly what you paid them. Once you've terminated, then you'll be prompted to go into your ROE process as normal. Let's go back into employees and see what happens if we have an employee who has a change in company ownership. Right? We mentioned that before. That was one of those. Oops, that was one of those variables that we can't really predict. And so, what we know is that a change in company ownership could mean that the employee is being terminated, the new owner is getting rid of everybody and starting fresh. That can absolutely happen. On the other hand, the change in ownership could be that it's just a new CRA number. So in that case, you're not terminating the employee permanently, so you might want to not use the offboarding assistant even though it's recommended. So how do you do that? Really simple. So what you'll notice is I already set this employee up for change of ownership and it said offboarding assistant recommended. So I already set this one up for you. So you know that change of ownership is going to recommend it because it errs on the side of caution. But in this case, all we're doing is changing CRA numbers for this employee. I don't want to do, I'm not letting them go permanently, and therefore I don't want to run it. So no problem, really simple. Click on the button and just say skip. And we're going to ask you a question just in case you made a mistake, right? Maybe you didn't understand the question. Maybe you clicked it accidentally. No problem. We just want to make sure. No, go back, take you back to the previous page, and you can start over. Or you are skipping the offboarding assistant and say, yes, I want to skip. And as long as you're sure, 100%, because remember, the cost of noncompliance is very high. Go ahead and say skip. And now you have the option to terminate. Now, it does say it was recommended and you skipped it. Again, we don't know your situation specifically for certain cases like this. So we just want to make sure that you have the option to change your mind at any time, just in case you might have made a mistake. So that's it. That is how the offboarding assistant works. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, let's go back and talk about what you get out of this. So the offboarding assistant is this fantastic tool. It makes compliance simple, it errs on the side of caution, and it really digests those really complex rules for a fraction of the cost of a hired professional. So what you get out of this, you get insured compliance. We make sure that it will always err on the side of caution. It will stay above the law, above the ESA standards. If there is a variable, it will err on the side of the employee. Better for you, better for the employee. You also get that PDF, that downloadable detailed report with your results and a full explanation of the calculations. It goes into such detail about, what law we applied based on your province. It is so detailed, and again, this is a report that you are welcome and requested to share with your employee. Let them know the good you've done for them. It gives you guidance on next steps. So you've got that walkthrough of the help articles, and it literally is a step by step by step. You've also got access to our customer success team if you need it. It also gives you an option to speak with an HX professional about your results. We have HX team members on staff ready to go uh, to answer your questions. So if you have questions, by all means, please reach out. Again, the cost of noncompliance is too high. I do want to illustrate what you don't get because this one's important for you to know and be aware of. And if you've never been in this situation as an employer, I'm very happy for you. Um, there is a possibility that you might see it sometime in your business owning lifetime. What you don't get is protection from independent legal action. And I want to explain what that means. Independent legal action is when an employee goes to an employment lawyer, not the ESA or the Ministry of Labor, but an employment lawyer, and says, the termination payments they gave me, even though they might be compliant, are not enough. And I want to sue them. And any employee can do this. And it does nothing will actually protect you from this. Any employee in any industry can do this, and nothing will protect you from it. But I will tell you that as an employer, your obligation when you are terminating somebody is to pay out their ESA required amounts. Unless they have an employment contract that says they get more than that, then you have to pay that. That always takes precedent, but you have to pay out those ESA required amounts, whether they sue you or not. And so if you wait to see if they're going to sue you, just in case, hey, I might have to pay more, I might not, I don't know, let me see. No, that will put you in a worse situation. Always pay out what you're required to pay out, whether it's the ESA requirements or the or whatever is in their employment contract that might be greater than the ESA requirements. But do not wait and do not think that this will protect you from legal action. It won't. Anybody can sue you at any time. But knowing that you have done what is legally required of you will put you in a much better standing no matter what. All right, let's talk about price. It's $250 per use. And I'm gonna say that again. It's only $250 per use because I get it. That seems expensive. We get it. We at Payment Evolution get it. That does seem expensive. But we really thought about the cost of non-compliance. So when we look at the penalties for non-compliance, whether it's your time for an audit, your administrative costs to deal with an audit, to deal with a violation and not paying that violation, the cost of non-compliance is so high that you can't not do it. So are some of the other options, right? We talked about this earlier, talking about hiring an outside professional, some of those administrative costs. Maybe I would need to hire a lawyer or an HR professional. Well, let's look at some of what, the realities of what some of those cost. An employment lawyer starts anywhere from $250 up to $800 per hour. An HR professional, anywhere from $100 to $300 per hour. And you might say, well, $100 per hour, that's not that much. But then you have to think about the whole situation. They don't have any history on your company or your employees. So you're going to spend a couple hours working with them and them going through the employee's records. The tool goes through the employee's records in a fraction of a second. Whereas a professional person who's looking at that, give me the last 2 years of pay stubs from this employee, and they're looking through every one. Well, that's going to take up time for them to go through all of those things. And if there's any other documentation in there, it's going to take them time to go through all of those things. So while it may seem like $100 an hour is less, it really does add up when you start looking at what an HR professional is going to need in order to give you the types of results that we have given you with this tool. They may or may not provide you with a document that you can share with your employee, right? They might say, hey, this is what you need to pay, and you go pay it. And then your employee comes back and says, why do they pay this? Why'd you pay me this? And you have nothing, and then you have to go back again. So I don't know whether they would give you that or not. I have not seen somebody give this type of documentation before, but it would, if you asked for it, it would add to your cost as well. Lastly, they're not going to help you properly run and record the payout, right? And our system via help articles and our customer success team are here to help you get it done, get the employee paid in a compliant way, and make sure that you can have a good final parting with this employee, because that's really the most important thing. Nobody wants to leave on bad terms. Everybody wants to go, I feel good about what I did today. So this brings us almost to the end, and I'm hoping that you guys walk away with these three things that we really wanted you to walk away with today. We talked to you about what is it, why do we build it, how it works, how to use it, when to use it. That's great. What we want you to really take away as your end feeling here is that this tool simplifies compliance. That's really what it does. That's its job. You shouldn't have to wrestle with complex employment laws. That's our job. That's what we do. I've got Christine here in the Q&A with me. We're both payroll compliance professionals, and we love reading legislation. Give it to us. We're happy. You shouldn't have to do that. You should have time to run your business the way that you need to run it and make sure that you can be compliant in a very simple way. And lastly, this is about peace of mind for you as an employer, knowing that you are being compliant and doing right by your employee, having them walk away going, okay, this might not be a great thing, but they did the right thing. And that's really the most important thing. So let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. So I'm going to open up my Q&A. Hopefully, we got about 10 minutes left. That's a lot of time. Hopefully, we've got some questions that you guys want me to answer. Okay. Great question from Victoria. Hi, Victoria. I know you. What will happen if I just run the offboarding assistant, but then decide not to terminate the employee? Great question. Absolutely, you can do this. What will happen is, as long as you don't terminate the employee, rehire, and then terminate again, those results will stay there. And so you can refer back to them at any time. Now, it might be that you want to start all over, and we absolutely have a way for you to do that. But if you decide not to terminate them, or if you hold off on those pay in lieu and say, I'm going to give them different notice, you can adjust based on what's in the PDF. But you can absolutely do that. If you run it and then you go back and decide to either keep the employee or keep them for a certain amount of time, it's always there for you. If you want to reset it back to 0 and run it again before you actually do terminate them, contact our support team. They'll help you get that done. Let's see. Any other questions in the live chat? Am I missing something?
Hi, Andrea. There's one from Dawn. Is the province of employment in the employer's provincial address or the employee's?
Oh, great question. The province of employment is actually a fairly challenging thing to determine. The CRA has a whole bunch of rules around it. In most cases, if the employer has a physical location within a province, that would be the employee's province of employment, regardless of where the employee actually works. So I'll give you an example. Payment Evolution has a physical office here in Ontario, and Christine, who's here in our Q&A chat, Christine works from home in Alberta. Christine's province of employment is Ontario, so she's subject to Ontario tax laws and things like that. The time that that the offboarding assistant would maybe not work for somebody like Christine is because her province that she is, it's the provincial rules that she is subject to under ESA requirements is the province where she performs her work. So she actually falls under Alberta legislation for ESA. but province of employment would be Ontario. So she's one of those rare people that the tool wouldn't work for because we assume she falls under Ontario legislation as part of one of the assumptions. So that was a great question. But if you're interested in province of employment information, Don, please reach out to our support team. It's just support at paymentevolution.com, and just ask a POE question. They'll send you a nice little link that'll tell you all the rules that CRA was supposed to clarify this year, but actually just made it more complicated. But they're happy to help kind of give you some guidance on that. So thanks for that question. That was great.
We have another great question, Andrea. What if you hire someone as a temp? What if you hire someone as a temp, the reason for termination is not quit, but they only work for a short period of time, for example, 2 to 3 shifts. They are not eligible for severance. How do you offboard?
Yeah, so this is another great question. Thank you to whoever posted it. So when you hire somebody as a temp, even though they're a temporary employee, they might be subject to termination pay in lieu of notice. So severance, it's very specific to Ontario, must be over 5 years, and your company has to have a global payroll of over 2.5 million. So already as a temp, they're not there for 5 years. So we're not really worried about that part. But we might want to say they might be eligible for pay in lieu, and this will be based on their length of employment. And so what the tool will do is it will run it. And there are times I've seen it give a 0 result. You've actually done everything to be in compliance. That's great. Now you know that you have backup. We did all of these calculations. You still get that PDF. We did all of these calculations, said, nope, we don't owe you anything. If you really are 100% confident that you owe them nothing, maybe you've spoken with an outside professional, maybe you've read the Employment Standards Act for your province and you're like, I got this, no problem. You can use that skip option if it's not right for you for your situation. When it gets recommended, the first button is always say run, because we in most cases, we think that it's probably the right thing to do, but you did have that little drop down there that showed you how to skip it, and so you can do that at any time. Any other questions? Okay, I think that's it. Well, lucky us, we got out of here a little bit early today. I really appreciate everybody being here. We will send you a post-attendee survey, and so you can tell us what you think of the webinar, things that you'd like to see for future webinars. We'd love to know what you thought about the Offboarding Assistant. We'd love to know, how you feel about the tools that we're offering. Does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel compliant? Any information, feedback, details you want to give us, we are happy to listen, and it helps us improve products and make better tools for you. What do you need as an employer? You got to let us know so that we can build them for you. So with that, I will say thank you to Allie and Patrick and Christine for answering some of those questions in the chat and the Q&A. And as always, thank you to our behind-the-scenes host, Will, who makes sure everything runs smoothly and makes it all happen. We'll be sending out a survey and a recording of today's webinar. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Have a great day, everyone.